Hi guys, it's Kirsty. In today's video, I'm going to discuss something which is widely covered in the OCD community, and that is uncertainty. So in this video, I want to talk about some of the things that helped me with tolerating uncertainty in my own OCD recovery. So I'm going to kind of use examples of some of the things that I've read and heard that helped me, in case that can be of any help to you, and talk about ways that we can kind of grow our intolerance of uncertainty. But before I go into that, I'd like to ask, please do subscribe by clicking on the subscribe button below in order to stay up to date with new videos as they're released. So I thought it would be useful to begin this video with a definition of uncertainty. However, when I Googled it, it came up with the definition that the meaning of uncertainty is a state of being uncertain. So then I Googled uncertain, and I came up with this definition. Adjective: to not be relied on, not known or definite, or not completely confident or sure of something. So why is this relevant when it comes to OCD recovery? So with OCD, quite often we'll find ourselves kind of latched onto something where we're kind of afraid of something associated with it. Whether that's that we're afraid of the potential outcome of a potential situation, or we're afraid of doing something wrong, or we're afraid of feeling a certain way forever and having to live with that discomfort. Quite often, the compulsions and avoidance behaviours that we do that feed into the OCD cycle are done to try to, unsuccessfully, all of the time, eliminate uncertainty, eliminate the feeling of not knowing, or etc. So, for example, if somebody's doubting whether or not they love their partner, they might be trying to get certainty over that idea so that they can act in accordance with that, so they can break up with their partner and do the right thing and avoid living an inauthentic life or leading their partner on, which is what they might be afraid of. Or it might be that they're trying to find out for definite if it is OCD and get certainty over that so that they can stay with their partner and live happily ever after. So the fear might be because they're afraid of breaking up with their partner or losing their partner, and they want to try and find ways to eliminate the uncertainty that might even be a possibility. Or somebody might be having, obsessions about harm or like, for example, taboo sexual obsessions or something like that. And even though they feel like there's a strong possibility it might be OCD because they've had other themes and they might know quite a bit about OCD, they still find themselves doing avoidance behaviours just in case, therefore, to eliminate the uncertainty that they might act upon these thoughts. So you can see where sort of, doing certain compulsions might be done to eliminate any chance of acting upon thoughts, or eliminate any chance of living an authentic life, losing your partner, leading your partner on, or, any chance of doing something that you don't actually want to do. So it's these behaviours and compulsions, avoidances are done to essentially eliminate any uncertainty that the feared outcome might come true. Of course, the problem is the more we do these avoidance behaviours or compulsions to try and get answers to things or stop things from happening, the more we're feeding into the idea that the obsession might be real, and the more uncertain we become, the more we doubt, the more we try and say to ourselves, it's OCD, it's just OCD, it's OCD, the more we kind of become intertwined with it and doubt whether it's OCD. That's why we quite often, as OCD sufferers, will be looking for any other possible explanation to explain what's going on other than it being OCD, whether it's, looking at other mental health conditions or whatever other ideas we might come up with, anything to explain what's going on aside from it simply, not simply, but it being OCD. So, we'll look into things to try and get answers constantly to try and eliminate the uncertainty. And the thing is that in order to leave the thoughts there and not engage, which obviously we're told often is the key, don't engage, don't get involved with the thoughts and all of that. In order to do that, we have to be able to learn to tolerate the uncertainty that the thoughts might be real or it might come true, etc., which in theory might sound quite simple to a non-OCD sufferer. But for those of us who have OCD, we know it feels so real. It doesn't feel like a small possibility that this thing might happen to us. It feels almost like almost like a certainty that it will. It almost feels like we're 90% sometimes that our feared scenario is real and 10% that it's OCD, rather than the other way round. Because if it was the other way round, it would be a lot easier to not engage with the thoughts, not ruminate, not mental check, not avoid, or whatever compulsions we might do to try and eliminate that uncertainty. So that's why it's that much harder for us. So, you know, for those of us who suffer from OCD or anxiety, it's not necessarily that we can't tolerate uncertainty as a general kind of rule across every subject or anything, and that we tolerate it a whole lot less than other people who don't have OCD. It's just that the condition of OCD, the way it feels so real that it doesn't feel that far-fetched to us that this thing might come true. Whereas to somebody who doesn't have OCD, some of the things that we can be afraid of feel so, that they can look at it from the point of view because they're not stuck in a fear cycle like we are. Well, that's so unlikely. Yes, there might be a 1% chance, a 0.1% or 1 in a million chance, but it's so unlikely. So why do you have to do these behaviors? But to us, it feels very likely. And obviously the problem is the more we do avoidances and compulsions, the more likely it feels. So I just want to talk about some of the things that might help with growing that tolerance of uncertainty of certain kind of subjects, because essentially those of us with OCD, as we learn to tolerate uncertainty, we're going to get to a level where we can tolerate uncertainty a whole lot more than the average person. So as I said, I don't think that our base of tolerance of uncertainty is any worse than other people. It's just that things feel a whole lot real to us. So we are going, for our OCD recovery, in order to practice not getting stuck on things quite the same way, not engaging with our obsessions, we want to grow our uncertainty to quite, to above average level, more than the level of tolerance of uncertainty of the average person who doesn't suffer from OCD. So if we can learn to do this, then obviously that helps us to feel sort of more comfortable in other areas of our life. Maybe we'll learn to, as well as our OCD recovery, perhaps afterwards we'll learn to tolerate change a lot better than the average person. So there are lots of benefits here. So for me, one of the things that really, really helped me in terms of my understanding of uncertainty and tolerating uncertainty was something I read a couple of years ago about, I think it was an article, I can't remember who wrote it. Anyway, so uncertainty isn't necessarily 50-50 thing or the flip of a coin. If we are going with uncertainty, it's simply tolerating the chance, no matter how small it is, 1 in a million chance it might be true. So it's not necessarily, if we're not engaging with our thoughts because we're tolerating uncertainty, we're not saying, well, it's a 50-50 chance, I'm going with that it's still OCD. We're not putting a number on it or anything. And that really, really helped me, because it was kind of like saying, well, it's not necessarily, it doesn't have to be black and white, one thing or the other. Tolerating uncertainty can be, on a kind of a spectrum of likelihood of things. We don't need to put numbers on it. That's not something we need to get involved in. And it doesn't have to be black and white and rigid like that. Another thing that helped me, and this is something we discuss widely on this channel, because we talk about rational emotive behavioural therapy, which focuses massively on unconditional acceptance, unconditional self-acceptance, life acceptance, and other acceptance. So for me, when I was working on my OCD recovery, practicing, learning to accept worst case scenario of some of the things I was afraid of, helped me to tolerate the uncertainty of the small chance this thing might be real. So it helped me to reduce my fear and terror levels of my feared scenarios to a concern and something I strongly didn't want to happen, but something that I didn't feel like the world would absolutely implode on me if it did happen. So while I felt very uncomfortable in tolerating uncertainty in the moment when I was having spikes, I felt very uncomfortable, and like I did still, you know, very, very much want this thing not to be the case. In order to kind of focus on my OCD recovery and try to move forward in my life, I had to make the decision to accept the small chance that this thing might be real in order to finally be able to work on moving past these things that I was stuck on. And the process of deciding to, tolerate the uncertainty of the small chance this thing might be real, even though we very strongly don't want it to be the case, it can sometimes come from, suffering for long periods of time and seeing that doing the same thing over and over again is only getting you more stuck. So it's making the choice to do something different this time. Another thing that I read, which I sort of remind myself with other things, not just OCD recovery, continuing to do the same thing over and over again and expecting to get different results is the definition of madness. And by the way, this is not me saying that we're all bonkers or anything, because, because of the compulsions that we do. It's perfectly understandable. Why wouldn't we do things to try and eliminate discomfort? It's human nature. But we do get to a point where we realize over time, the things that we're doing, the compulsions, the avoidances, they're not helping us, and we're still not becoming any less certain. We're still not feeling any less certain that our feared scenario isn't going to come true. It's only making it feel more likely. It's only making us feel more uncertain. So it's making the decision after many, years of suffering and maybe things that we've missed out on, to try something different, try to, maybe I will give it this, even if it feels very real in the moment, this thing right now. If I decide to, I don't need to put a number on it. And if I decide to not do a compulsion, I'm taking a chance, tolerating the uncertainty. But for me, working on the unconditional acceptance side helped me to do that, because I would still find, even if I made the choice, like feeling like I made the conscious choice to not engage and not try and seek certainty and do something different this time, my mind was still wired at certain points to the idea, holding on to the belief that this is terrifying, I couldn't possibly cope. So I would still find myself almost kind of automatically going into rumination. So what I needed to do was bring my fear levels down to, concern and strongly not want this to happen, rather than I can't possibly tolerate the even the smallest chance this might happen because it's so awful, I couldn't possibly live. So I had to learn to be a bit more flexible in my belief systems about, the various things that I was finding myself latched onto in order to help me to better tolerate the uncertainty and not engage and choose a different action. And there are videos on this channel which talk about how to dispute irrational beliefs, and it's these irrational beliefs that cause the extreme, anxiety or these strong urges to do everything in our power to get rid of the uncertainty. So there are videos on this channel, as I said, where you can kind of learn to dispute your irrational beliefs, identify your irrational beliefs. I won't go into that because it's covered in other videos, but this is something that personally helped me in my quest for growing my levels of uncertainty. So I hope this video has been helpful in terms of looking at, why tolerating uncertainty is really difficult for us if we suffer from anxiety or OCD. And just to give a couple of things that helped me, like in terms of the sort of the 50-50 thing that I read really, really helped me, that it's not a 50-50 flip of a coin thing. We're not saying that. It might just be the tolerating uncertainty of a 1 in a million chance. However, what helped me tolerate that 1 in a million chance was working on the fact that if that 1 in a million chance was real, my whole world wouldn't necessarily implode. It would be bad, but it wouldn't necessarily be completely the worst thing if my fears came true. Like looking at how you could tolerate these things, looking at how other people that have had stuff happen to them have moved on, have tolerated, have continued to live their life under difficult circumstances. So I hope it has been helpful, and do take care. Bye.